My name. Perfect. Recording in progress. My name is Mary McGuire. I am a project manager with the Rural Development Network and a member of the Alberta Age-Friendly Community of Practice, and I will be your moderator today. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this fifth and final session of our Diverse Seniors webinar series, this one specifically focusing on seniors living with disabilities. Slide, yeah. So to begin, in the spirit of our journey to promote reconciliation, we would like to honor the truth of the shared history and acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations across Turtle Island. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and of course, those who have passed and have gone before us. And I will now move into some housekeeping items before I introduce folks. So just going to go over some things just because it's important to us that you're comfortable during this session. So you have free use of your mute and camera options. For everyone's listening ease, we ask that you keep yourself on mute during the presentation pieces, unless, of course, you'd like to make a comment. You can pull up the participant list by clicking on the participant icon at the bottom of your screen as well, if that's something that interests you. So click on that and you'll see an option to raise your virtual hand. Later on, we will be inviting people to click that when they want to speak, just to help us manage the conversation. So again, just pulling up the participants list, and then if you click on your icon, there should be a notification to put your hand up. It also is on the bottom ribbon of the screen as well, your Zoom screen. So in terms of the chat, we encourage everyone to use the chat box to share thoughts and ideas and questions. We have Carol as our chat box moderator today, who will help relay your messages as well. And if you just joined us, we welcome you to share who you are in the chat box. And I see some folks have already been doing that. And that would be lovely. So yeah, share your name, organization, and location. Just an FYI, the presentation today is being recorded and will be shared on Core Alberta. So if you'd like to turn your camera off, if that makes you feel better, or adjust your screen name, you may do so. So this series is being hosted by Alberta Age-Friendly Community of Practice. And the Community of Practice is designed to help communities that are considering or in the process of developing an age-friendly plan. In this closed group, members meet regularly, and we offer support to one another in a mentoring capacity, and we share resources. And there's also an open discussion group that is open to anyone interested in the age-friendly or in age-friendly concepts or its 8 domains. And the focus of the group is really about disseminating information about age-friendly initiatives and resources, and providing opportunities to ask questions and share information. Members may or may not be a part of an age-friendly initiative. It's not necessary for you to already be doing something in the age-friendly realm, I suppose. So if you're interested, again, if you're interested in learning more about the age-friendly or about age-friendly in these two groups, please visit corealberta.ca. So what does it mean to be age-friendly? At its heart, age-friendly is a way to help people age actively and healthily by looking at the 8 domains of community life in relation to age-friendly and age inclusivity. So that's outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, respect and inclusion, civic participation and employment, communication and information, and community support and health services. So those are those 8 pillars or domains that we look at when we're building out age-friendly action plans or what have you. And it's all about creating environments, both physical and social, that support older adults in staying engaged, getting exercise, feeling a sense of connection with others, and being respected in their community. And the journey to become age-friendly really starts from the ground up and relies on the input and involvement of people of all ages and abilities in every step of that planning process. And a key part of the age-friendly model is developing a community plan that pulls together partners to identify what's working well for folks aging in their community and what's holding them back, right? Each community's age-friendly plan is unique, designed around its specific needs and diversity, with initiatives aimed and tailored at reaching as many folks as possible within that community. So putting an age-friendly action or age-friendly plan into action can start with small local efforts by community members, and of course larger initiatives as well that need more resources. And it typically looks like a team effort across various different groups and stakeholders, right? And the goal is to make our communities inclusive and supportive for everyone as they age. So at its core, an age-friendly environment is one without physical or social barriers, and it's supported by policies and systems and services that allow folks to thrive as they age and allows them to stay in their community for as long as possible. And it's about promoting health and building up physical and mental abilities at every stage in life. Even if someone starts to experience a loss of ability, they can still do the things that matter to them in their community. And age-friendly practices help older adults really by supporting them in meeting those basic needs and supporting that continuation of learning and growing and making decisions, staying mobile, and that building and maintaining of relationships in their community, and of course that contribution to their community as well. It's really about connecting that with older adults in our communities. And these practices really respect the diversity in people's needs and abilities as they age. They're designed to recognize the different strengths and resources that older adults bring to the table and adapt to meet the changing needs and preferences while respecting people's lifestyles and their choices. Also work towards inequities and protecting those who are most vulnerable. And really, they're designed to ensure that older adults are included and are able to contribute in all areas of community life. So in short, age-friendly practices make sure that our communities are welcoming, adaptable, and supportive places for everyone as they grow older. So seniors are, like I've been saying, seniors are a diverse group of people, including different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, sexual orientation, and those with disabilities. And older Albertans span more than 2 generations. They have a very wide spectrum of skills, abilities, support systems, living arrangements, levels of education, health and wellness, all of which are influenced by their unique experiences, their lifestyles, and their circumstances. And this series is really about exploring how senior serving agencies and age-friendly partners, businesses, and others can help foster a shared understanding of the needs of diverse populations of older adults and identify those enablers of the inclusion of older adults. And so through these sessions, this is the last one, but throughout these sessions, we're really looking to encourage and facilitate a variety of local initiatives that support a sense of belonging for diverse populations of seniors. All right, folks. Now to the fun part. Am I right? In this session, we have a panel that will speak to the challenges older adults living with disabilities experience and explore ways to support their inclusion in age-friendly planning and age-friendly initiatives that communities can undertake to support that sense of belonging. Our three panelists will provide a brief introduction of themselves and their organizations, including what a sense of belonging means to them. I will then facilitate a bit of a discussion based on some predetermined questions we have. And following the panel discussion, there will be time for a Q&A from folks participating today and attending. As mentioned earlier, feel free to throw things in the chat too. And by the time we get to the Q&A part, we can then just scroll through them and bring them forward to the table. All right. So I'm going to start off by introducing Dr. Mark and Ianco. Is that correct? The T is silent, folks. The T is silent. And I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll do a quick little introduction and then pass it over to you to continue to introduce yourself further, if that sounds okay, Mark.
Certainly. Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. So Mark has been registered as legally blind since the age of 10 due to an inherited eye condition. He has over 40 years experience in and contributions to the access design continuum, including employment in middle management with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. Also an access program manager with Parks Canada, developing barrier-free access to national parks and national historical sites. He has also devoted his expertise to accessible housing, researched, advised, and led on crime prevention and human rights of people with disabilities through the independent living movement. And from 1979 to 2014, was very much involved in advising on building codes and related regulations for a wide range of disability populations. Mark continues his advocacy under the Radical Inclusion Group in association with the John Humphrey Center for Peace and Human Rights. And he is also a fellow with the Affordable Housing Solutions Lab, Human Geography Department and the Human Geography Department with the University of Alberta. He does continue his research and theory development on the access design continuum. I love that. And having completed his University of Calgary interdisciplinary PhD degree, and his thesis was entitled The Inclusive Design Education of Environmental Designers, a Transdisciplinary Approach, which was partially sponsored through a Canadian Disability Policy Alliance scholarship. So if I didn't take it all away from you, Mark, I will now invite you to provide a bit more information about yourself and maybe, I don't know, maybe you have a cat and you want to talk about your cat after I took all that. So maybe provide a bit more about yourself and also would love to hear what a sense of belonging means to you in this
Thank you, Mary.
context.
Thank you so much, Mary. Good introduction. Of course, it was printed out for you, but well read. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Um, uh, just to elaborate on my inherited eye condition, my mother had which termed as retinitis pigmentosa, and it's a slow deterioration of the retinal cells over a number of years. When I was a kid, I was out riding my bike and I could read normally. I haven't even used a white cane until maybe about 15 years ago. So that's how much it's deteriorated. I have strictly light and dark perception now, no detail at all. I think it's a little bit different growing up with a disability. I've had a chance to have a mentor throughout my lifetime, of course, my mother, so I could see her going through the stages. As we can appreciate, some seniors might be adventitiously blind through some sort of an advent, or perhaps aging into disability. So I come from a bit of a different realm than that because I've grown up with my disability. Um, as you mentioned, I'm quite involved with the John Humphrey Center for Peace and
Mhm.
Human Rights, and right now I'm employed with the University of Alberta doing some research on inclusive housing and accessible housing. So I'm not really affiliated with any particular one organization, although I've been involved in the social services from a number of perspectives for quite a few years, since 1978 to be exact. So I have quite a perspective of cross disability issues within Alberta as well. I think I'll leave it at that. Oh, in terms of what a sense of belonging means to me, I think there are three major aspects of belonging. The first one being the physical involved, being physically involved or physically belonging. And that, of course, relates to one's environment that we might touch on later here with some of my props. The second one is being socially included or perhaps psychosocially included. And related to that would be feeling emotionally involved as well in one's community and one-to-one. And I think the third aspect of belonging relates to spiritual belonging. And perhaps I can elaborate on those three perspectives as we go through the discussions today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And is it okay that I call you Mark, actually?
Well, please, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Um, yeah, I would love to hear more, like, as we move on, especially uh, it'd be wonderful if you could expand, if you're comfortable to do so, around that spiritual component once we come back around. Yeah, so I've just put a bit of a pin in that for myself. Would love to hear more about that. And thank you so much, Mark. It's a true pleasure to have you here today. And we'll come back to you in a little bit. And so next we do have two people who will be also sharing their personal experience as well as experience from their organization, which is Deaf and Hear Alberta. So Lorraine Novinskas, is that Novinskas? Is
Yeah,
that
that's
correct?
pretty good.
I'm
Very good.
high-fiving myself. So Lorraine is a hearing mentor volunteer and has had progressive hearing loss for over 20 years. She has been a volunteer in the Deaf and Hearing or Deaf and Hear Alberta peer mentoring program since 2016. And we also have Leslie Brockman here, who is the Client Services and Volunteer Manager, and formerly working in the deaf community as an ASL English interpreter. Leslie began working at Deaf and Hear Alberta in November of 2000. Oh, it's been a good run. Hey. Congratulations. She has worked in a variety of roles, as you can imagine, such as the accounting coordinator, payroll manager, casino volunteer, and coordinator. But her favorite is her current role as the client services and volunteer manager through two programs. So that is the peer-to-hear mentorship program and the seniors social supports program for hard of hearing and culturally deaf seniors. So maybe what I'll do is I will turn it over to Lorraine first, if you wanted to chat more about that and about yourself. And I feel then we could pass it over also to, so Leslie, yeah, and then Leslie, if you wanted to expand a bit more as well. And Lorraine, I'd also be interested in asking you too, what a sense of belonging means to you and how you've seen it kind of done well, let's say.
Well, I hadn't thought of that. um, well, just for people to accept and be aware of my hearing loss and include
Yeah.
me in conversations. That's basically it. And you know,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, I thought
That's
I was
okay.
losing my connection.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
where is she? Are you still there, Lorraine?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you see me?
Okay.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't.
There you are.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you want me to further answer that?
No, that's perfect, Lorraine. And I think I sort of threw you a bit of a curveball. I didn't
Yeah.
really prep you. I didn't prep you for that question. I think I just got excited to kind of know more from your perspective.
That's
But
okay.
but yeah, I do think that you know, a big piece of that is for folks to learn what is the best way to include folks who are like have hearing impairments and are deaf in a conversation, right? Like, and it is maybe just as simple as just asking, like, what is the best way to create space for everyone to feel like they're a part of this group, this conversation, right?
Right. Right. It helps if we advocate for ourselves and let people know that we have hearing loss and that they need to face us when they speak. Not cover their mouths, maybe
right.
speak a little slower, a little louder, and not treat us
Yes.
like we're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very, very critical piece of feeling
Very.
like you belong into
Yes,
a
yes,
community.
right.
Absolutely. Um, and yeah, Leslie, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add about yourself or in that piece of the conversation of which I did not prep you for.
Oh, well, I guess I sort of in the introduction kind of talked about what it is that I do here, and I've been in the community for a very long time. I started when I was very, very young, you know, and I think one of the main things I find is just accommodation and inclusivity. And there's one thing that a lot of my clients that I work with will say is when they repeat, you know, pardon me, pardon me, pardon me, and people say, oh, I'll tell you later. So,
Oh,
yeah,
Mm,
dismissive. I think that's kind of the one thing that would make somebody not have that sense of belonging if like I'll tell you later. So just kind
yes.
of add that piece.
And yeah, it sounds like Lorraine really was like wholeheartedly like, yes, I know that feeling. You've
oh
experienced
yes,
that many times.
definitely, right. It's people being dismissive with us, which is really annoying, or
Yes.
you know, oftentimes people will just say, never mind, which is, oh, so frustrating.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, super dismissive and yeah,
very. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, it's like a real pleasure having you both here. Thank
Thank you.
you. And we'll bring it back your way shortly. And I just want to introduce our third panelist or panelists really from L'Arche, Calgary. So L'Arche is an international, or maybe I'll wait till they bring us there. There we are. Okay. A very festive looking background. I see a beautiful Christmas tree. Anyways, L'Arche is an international organization that creates homes and communities of belonging for adults with developmental disabilities and the people who support them. And so L'Arche Calgary was founded 51 years ago and is one of more than 150 L'Arche communities and nearly 30 L'Arche projects around the world. So from Argentina to Zimbabwe and everything in between. And Dovey, am I pronouncing the name correctly? Is that Dovey or Dovey?
Dovey.
Dovey, okay. All right. Thank you. So Duffy arrived in L'Arche, Calgary in 1978 and has lived in a L'Arche home for the past 46 years. And with us today to provide insight into the experiences of persons with developmental disabilities are Duffy Williams. And Duffy is a senior, as mentioned, living with a disability in a L'Arche home. And there's Teresa Ginther, who is Debbie's house leader, and Carmela Perez is L'Arche's community life coordinator, and Dallas Frank is L'Arche's Homes Coordinator. So what I will do is invite Carmela to introduce L'Arche and maybe if I missed anything, and then maybe we could pass things on to Debbie with Teresa's support to introduce Debbie further, and if Debbie has additional things she would like to share about her life.
So we had, okay, great. I was gonna ask if you had the presentation.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Carmela. It's nice to be here with all of you today. So I just wanted to introduce our L'Arche Calgary, L'Arche International organization a little bit. So starting at the top, so L'Arche International is an international federation. And we have 160 communities all throughout the world in 37 countries. So we're all over. And in L'Arche Canada, there's 30 communities in 9 provinces in Canada. And then in L'Arche Calgary, that's us, we have 5 homes. And like you said before, we opened in 1973. So last year was our 50th anniversary. It was a big deal for us. So we had a good celebration for that. And yeah, there's some pictures here below of our homes and programs. So on the very left is our office and our day program space. And then beside that is our home, one of the homes, Kitchiak. They each have a unique name. And then the one circled in yellow is Annapurna, and that is where Debbie lives. That's where we're joining you from today. So you can kind of see in the background the home. And beside there is Haramai, and next to it is Villa Maria, and then the last one there is Marymount. So yeah, we have 5 group homes in L'Arche Calgary where people with and without disabilities live together and share life together. So we just wanted to introduce Debbie a little bit, and yeah. So Debbie, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name? Just Debbie. My name is Debbie Williams, like a bird. Window.
I hope everyone heard that. She said, "My name is Debbie Williams, like a bird," and that's how Debbie always introduced herself.
Yeah. Well, because every time we go to the pub, never I have said the name. And then I gotta say my name. My name is Debbie Williams, like a bird. Like a bird.
So we're happy to be here with you, and we just wanted to share a little bit about Debbie's life. So we have some pictures to show you to give you an idea of what Debbie lives in L'Arche Calgary and what her life is all about. So what Debbie loves most about her home, what do you see here, Debbie? Do you want to share a bit about your home? Is this your bedroom?
Yeah, that's my home.
Yeah, this is Debbie's bedroom,
That's my bedroom.
and she loves pink, right?
Yeah. And I had Susan on top of my bed.
Oh yeah, Susie. So Susie is Debbie's doll. You can kind of see it.
What you
Sorry.
call- This Debbie. I'm
Right
this
beside
Debbie,
her in
and
the,
then Susan. I got the big dad of Susan too.
yeah, right beside her in the happy birthday picture, and
Yeah.
she's like her daughter, right?
Yeah.
And in the picture in the top right-hand corner is everyone in her house. So yeah, you guys get to have dinner together, play games, and have a really close relationship with those people.
I made me playing the piano.
Play the piano.
Yeah.
You can go to the next slide.
All my family.
And here it says what Debbie loves most about her L'Arche community.
Oh, my name.
So in our L'Arche community, we have, I don't know, about 80 people who kind of make it up, including people with disabilities and people who are supporting them and people who are working in our office. So altogether about 80 people or so. So we have this community who comes together and we celebrate certain things, and we have different events and gatherings where we can share life together and have special things going on. So this is Debbie partaking in our community in different ways. So what's this one, Debbie, with the finish line sign in the back? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I think we did that.
Yeah, it was the Run for L'Arche. It's our annual fundraising.
Oh, good. There we go. There, then.
Yeah, and Debbie was participating,
Yeah,
doing the
Then
1K.
it goes like this fast, and this is it. Hurry up, guys!
How about this one with 75?
Oh, that's
Remember
my
that?
name. 5.
So
I
last
was-
year, Debbie turned 75. So it was a big milestone birthday. So we always celebrate milestone birthdays together. So we all got together and had a big party. And then on the right side, it was actually just last week, we had our annual large Christmas pageant, and Debbie played, who were you playing in there? What character?
Mary.
Yeah, Mary. So those are some parts of her community. You can go to the next slide. And this one here is what Debbie loves most about her day program.
Yeah.
So what's this, Debbie? You're doing music?
The music.
Yeah, every Thursday they have music therapy.
Oh yeah.
We got all dressed up for Halloween and went trick or treating around the offices.
Yeah. That's really good. Excuse me.
Do you know who that is doing your hair?
Shadow.
Cyril. Yeah, Cyril always does her hair and she loves it. So she gets to do like day program at our office with a group of people, and she gets to do her day program activities at home on her own at her own pace. So that's been really amazing for her, you know, with aging and being able to go at her own pace that she wants. So you're doing some singing, some exercising, having a spa day at home.
Yeah, and I do exercises here.
Yeah. I think, is there one more slide or is this the last one? Oh, one more. Do you want to talk about this one, Teresa?
So I would like to introduce you to David's best friend, Rosie. And they probably know each other for almost 70 years, or 65 at least. They were living together in Missionary Center. And then after, when they moved to Large Calgary, I think one followed after another. And here's a couple pictures from the different activities. I think there is picture from the community retreat. We take time in May, June for a couple days of kind of reflection, and we spend time together. We do different activities. Some of it is spiritual, so we will share the prayers and have some team that we work on. Here is in the middle, you see Rosie and David being angels. They're angels every day, but this was at the pageant. Every year we're doing a Christmas pageant with St. Mary's University. And there is Davi and me amusing ourselves playing, I have to think, some sort of blocks, jingle, that's what it is.
So those are some of the important people in your life, Debbie, that help make your life feel whole and like you belong, right? So we kind of felt like we answered the I belong question and sharing about her life. So yeah, it's nice to be here with you all. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, host, for unmuting me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. This is how awkward. I'm having tech issues. Yeah, so I cannot see the Zoom screen anymore at all. But if you all can hear me, I'm just gonna like navigate it without the screen. And if any of the folks here supporting me, either Carol or Stephanie, can prompt me here and there, if I kind of go in a weird direction, that'd be super awesome. I'm trying to figure out how to pull my Zoom screen back up, but I'm just in a different setup today. So I think maybe things are glitching out and it's probably my issue somehow. I just wanted to put that out to the folks here today, just so in case things start not looking as smooth. Thank you so much for sharing, Debbie. It sounds
Mary,
like
I was going to say, join my world, you know, since you can't see. I just add that. Thank you.
You know, it's like it's kind of like what is the word I'm looking for? Like like learning in the moment, like the reality of some of the things that folks have to navigate. So if there is any session where it would be appropriate for this to happen, this would be the one. And so thank you. Thank you for your support, Mark.
Okay, no.
I
hope you took that in jest.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally. I'm totally laughing here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I also just wanted to thank all of you for providing a bit more information about yourselves and your organizations and what you've been up to throughout your lives. And of course, also learning more about the folks that have supported you or continue to support you right now. And I'm hoping we could now move into a bit of a panel discussion and open the floor up. I know that Lorraine, I know you do need to leave at 10:45, so maybe I will ask you a question first, although I did kind of throw you a curveball earlier. I feel like you paid your
you did.
dues. I know.
Wasn't expecting that one.
I mean, I just started freestyling. I don't know what was happening for me there, but I just randomly, yeah, I went off the script. So, yeah, Lorraine, I wanted to start with you because I know you only have a few minutes here. So I would like you to share maybe what some of the challenges you face are that others might not really tap into. I know you mentioned a couple things earlier, but yeah, if you could expand on that, I'd love to hear more, and I'm sure the group would as well.
Okay, so first of all, hearing loss is an invisible disability. You know,
right.
People can't tell unless, unless they see your hearing aids, but even then they don't necessarily understand. A lot of us speech read, which is the new way of saying lip reading. So if people cover their mouths, that's really makes it very difficult for us. And especially during COVID, with people having masks on, it masked their lips, and it also lowered their voices. And usually they were behind plexiglass, so that was like really, really quite challenging. The other thing is a lot of us don't hear a lot of things like maybe doorbells or phones, depending on, how much hearing loss you have and, the kind of equipment that you have. For instance, for myself, when I'm on a plane, I do not hear the announcements. So I always let a flight attendant know, look, I have hearing loss. I don't hear the announcements, but just come and tell me if it's an emergency. Otherwise, never mind. I'm okay with it. The other thing is, it's really hard to hear in large groups, restaurants, crowded places. That's really, really very difficult. So even though I can hear you really well today, it's because I'm in my home. It's very quiet. There are no background noises, that sort of thing. The other thing that's really annoying is when we're in a restaurant and there's loud music. Oh, that's just, I always ask them to turn it down or turn it off. And some of them do, some of them don't.
Yeah. And do you find like when you do express those things that on the most part, folks are fairly accommodating, or is it a bit of a hit and miss?
Mostly very accommodating, but some of them, sometimes people, they just don't want to help you out. They just, it's just the way it is. So you have to just accept it and, move on.
Yeah, and I think like I don't know if you saw my mouth drop a little bit, but just that whole thing with COVID and the masks, like I can only imagine the nightmare that must have been. I think even as like someone who does have a pretty good amount of hearing, my partner might say otherwise, but I remember just like how muffled it was. And so when you'd be trying to talk to somebody and if there was anything else going on around us, it was just so difficult to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
especially if you also have that added layer of, challenges around hearing or the inability to hear, and you don't even have like the lip reading, right, to rely on a little bit as
That's
well.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. We
What?
don't realize how much we rely on the speech reading.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it when I first I went for a hearing test over 20 years ago. I thought there was something wrong with me because I kept looking at people's lips, and I thought, why do I like? That's like really weird. And then when in the hearing test, they said, "Do you find yourself looking at people's lips?" And I thought, yes, I'm not crazy after all.
That's kind of interesting though, that it's an almost like an innate thing that we
It
do.
is. Yeah.
Right? If it is something that the doctor was bringing up as like, have you noticed yourself like that? It tells me that like many folks must do that. So interesting,
Yes.
huh?
Yeah.
Huh. And
So,
any other challenges you face that others might not realize outside of those few things that you had mentioned?
there probably are, but I can't think of them right now.
No, that's fair too. And you'll probably
Yeah.
be out and about today and you'll be like, dang, I should have brought this up with Mary when I was in that session.
Yeah.
And so, well, thank you, Lorraine. And so I'm going to pass it over also to, or maybe because I know you have to leave, Lorraine, I
Yeah.
might just pop over to that question as well around
Yeah.
what kind of adaptations or accommodations have been or would be helpful for you.
Well, definitely my hearing aids. If I didn't have
Yes.
hearing aids, I'm on my sixth pair,
Oh,
and the
wow.
technology keeps improving, which is just wonderful. So one of the technologies that's really improved a lot is Bluetooth, which I am totally dependent on. So
Mhm.
if I didn't have Bluetooth, I wouldn't be able to hear you as well, because the microphone on the speaker on my iPhone isn't as good as Bluetooth to the hearing aid. So I use it on my laptop, my tablet, my phone, my TV. I have a TV connector, which allows me to hear really well. So
Right.
yeah, I'd be lost without Bluetooth, honestly.
It's a brilliant innovation, isn't it?
Oh,
Because I have a
it is.
friend, yeah. And I just think like I have a friend who uses hearing aids as well, and how pumped she was that, she can with the Bluetooth just log or like get direct access to her Spotify and listen to music very
Oh,
clearly,
yes,
like
yes,
stuff like that. Or even,
yes,
if you're watching like streaming on Netflix or anything like that, it just creates a whole new
right.
world.
Right. And it's so crisp and clear. Even my kids
Yes.
have told me that, the Bluetooth is way better than the sound that comes out of the TV. So it's like, it's
Oh yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can listen to podcasts. I listen to music. It's just wonderful. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is an amazing innovation, and hopefully
Right.
it just continues to improve.
Right.
And so are there any other accommodations like you were mentioning, of course, like just when you're going out, having folks be mindful of the fact or advocating for yourself in the sense that, hey, can you
Yeah.
turn down the music? Or
Yeah.
even just with your friends, maybe even saying, hey, this is a really active, busy area. Can we move a bit to a different area so we can
Yes.
have a better convo or something?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's
Mm.
really helpful. And sometimes when I go into a restaurant, I'll ask the person who greets us, could they put us in the quietest part of the restaurant? And that really helps too.
Yeah.
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 I quite often ask for places to turn down the music. And sometimes they're like, oh, it's you. Yep. And they go and they just recognize me right away as I don't like that noise in the background. So some
Yeah.
places are actually really, really accommodating for that, which is great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Anything else,
Well,
Lorraine, you want to share? I know like you have to get going, but I'd love
yeah.
to. Mhm.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head right now, but I really do have to go because I have to go babysit some grandchildren.
Oh, yeah. And you're already
Yeah.
2 minutes past 10:45.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so I'll say goodbye now, and thank you
Yeah.
very much for letting me
Yeah.
share my thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you, Lorraine, for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful time with your grandbabies.
Oh, I always do. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
And so I did want to kind of pass this over to L'Arche Homes, specifically Dallas, like around what are some of the challenges that Debbie may face that others might not think about.
Thank you so much, Mary. And
Mm.
yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so there's a number of challenges we could address, but I think just in the interest of time, I'll just narrow it down to one. And the challenge I'd like to highlight is aging in place for people with disabilities. So like we said earlier, Debbie has lived here for a long time. She is 76 years old, going on 77 soon, Debbie.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And 16 coming on 17.
That's her young at heart, right, Debbie? Your birthday's coming up, Debbie.
Yeah.
So Debbie's lived, as we said earlier, in L'Arche, Calgary for the last 46 years of her life, which is amazing, Debbie. So spanning almost over 4 decades, that's a long time, Debbie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Debbie's not alone.
is.
In fact, about 60% of the individuals we support in L'Arche, Calgary are now over 50 years old. Those over 60 make up over 30% of our population. And those over 70 make up over 20%. And this is true across all of our large communities in Canada. So aging and disability is a very important topic for us now, something we've had to learn quickly. And it hits home for us. Our seniors with disabilities far exceeded what the doctors told them their life expectancy would be. And I think in part because what the doctors, their high quality of life, because they are aging in place in a home and in a community where they're known and loved and valued with long-term committed relationships. And that makes all the difference. And at the same time, there are also challenges, and aging in place with a disability has been a steep learning curve for us. When we first welcomed people with disabilities to our large communities, we offered them a home for life. At the time, we couldn't imagine what the situation would be in 30 years. Many of the people we first welcomed, of course, are now elderly. Others are aging prematurely. Quite a few have since passed away. And over the years, we've had to come to terms with our limitations of care. We haven't always been successful in supporting our seniors through the aging process in homes. Sometimes due to the guardian's direction or concern for other members of the home, or the limits of our ability to provide appropriate care, the individual had to transition, sadly, to long-term care centers, hospitals, or hospices to receive the professional support that we could no longer provide. In those cases, we maintained our relationship by providing companionship and visitation, even though we no longer could provide the personal care that they needed in their home.
I was just going to ask. Oh, sorry, I interrupted. I have no social cues anymore, so. So I was just going to ask about that piece. So when some folks do move into long-term care, if there was in fact that ongoing relationship you keep with them and visit and all those things, but so that's lovely because those relationships are so meaningful, you know what I mean? And anyway, I just wanted to just interject and say something about that.
Thank you for that, Mary, because we do really value that ongoing connection, and they were such a part of our lives and our community. For example, they might still come for a birthday celebration or a community gathering. We do our best to keep that connection for sure. And so when L'Arche first opened its doors over 50 years ago, we really didn't fully comprehend the complications of the aging process when an individual already has multiple disabilities. Now, of course, we're much more aware of the complexities of dementia and reduced mobility, and loss of abilities and decline in mental health associated with aging and disability.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we recognize and value the unique gifts and strengths that Dovey and our other seniors with disabilities bring to our community. This is actually a really special season in Dovey's life. She touches so many lives in the season of her life. Everybody she touches, in fact, will say their lives were changed.
Oh.
Our community really would be incomplete without Dovey. Our lives are far richer because of Dovey's presence, and she's genuinely missed when she's absent. Dovey truly belongs here. The longevity of our core members is an invaluable gift to our community, but for Dovey to continue thriving as a senior living with a disability, she needs a strong network of support and strong voices of advocacy so she can continue living in the home and community where she belongs. L'Arche believes that every human life has value and that each person has something to contribute at every stage of life, including the end of life. And our challenge now, I would say, is to be creative and collaborate with healthcare professionals and natural supports in the wider community to advocate for Dovey as she continues aging in place while sharing her gifts in her own home with the support of her community. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dallas and Dovey. And Dovey, you just sound like an absolute gift. And so how lucky are those around you to have your bright light around and what's that?
She's a gem, yeah.
Oh,
Much
absolutely.
Love. Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, just to keep it with Dovey and Teresa, if you're there, I'm assuming you still are. If you wanted to talk a bit about what are some of those adaptations or accommodations that are helpful for Dovey, and Dovey, of course, interject at any time as well. I'd love to kind of hear more about what's helpful and how we can create more inclusive spaces.
So for us, we or people with disabilities thrive when they have routines. So we have morning routines, we have afternoon routines, we have evening routines. But as people are aging and as Dovey has aged, and she really needs those routines to be a little more flexible. So there is a need for changing of the schedule. There is need to choose activities that are maybe more important that day than others.
Yeah.
So Dovey does not go anymore to the day program. You know, those of you who I guess understand how life of person with disability looks like, they often have a day program and they go and do activities there. Dovey's day program is actually run from home. So can get adjusted to her needs daily. So for example, if we have a doctor appointment or we need to go and see some specialist, that becomes activity of the day. Flexibility is a big part. So sometimes we have to adjust things. Like this morning, Dovey got up a little earlier, and in fact, she's still in her pajamas, but looking very professional. Because, you know, we got up, we ate breakfast, we took the medications, and we'll take a shower later. So
hey, I feel you, Dovey. Like, I work from home typically, and you better believe there are days I stay in my pajamas all day while I'm working. So
one of the things what we need, we actually need one-on-one support. So we can provide that flexibility. So we can adjust to the day. You know, sometimes we have to adjust to the doctor rather than doctor adjusting to us, because they have a schedule that sometimes is a little more rigid than our schedule. You know, we choose activities what are priority. So for example, going to St. Mary's and be part of the a Christmas pageant was very important for Davi. So that morning, Davi slept a little longer. You know, we did not plan any other activities, so she would have energy to go to St. Mary's and be up. I mean, we came home like 9 in the evening that day, and we left probably around 3:30.
Okay.
So it is a long activity to go there, to get ready, to have a final practice, of course, be part of the play, and then visit people and come home. So I think this is the biggest one. You know, I can also mention people sometimes need a nap, just a nap. So, and that it's sometimes that's part of the, sometimes, often it's part of the day.
Yeah. As
you are aging. And it doesn't only happen for people with disabilities. I notice it with my husband, who already takes a nap. So, you know, so we all need to flexibility, one-on-one support, and really, and willingness to try just about anything to make your life easier.
Yeah. And it just feels like such a person-centered place to, like, I guess, manage from when you're working alongside and supporting Devi and whatever she might need. It's like, how can I, or not I, unless you want me to come around, Devi, but how can we be as adaptable and flexible as possible? Because I even think for myself, like what I think I'm going to want to do first thing in the morning, what I project, what I want to do later in the day, it's just, sometimes it changes. Sometimes my needs change, right? Sometimes I need a nap. And so absolutely, I think that that's such an important place to, I guess, support folks from, like, based on their strengths, based on what they need, right? And what's important for them at the time. So that's lovely. That's a wonderful message.
Yeah, so for us, the flexibility is the big one.
Yeah,
and of
totally.
course, we still have to operate in the setting what we have, with the funding what we have. So, but we trying really hard to not just teach or treat people as the objects in care.
Right, got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm actually, I'm really curious, Mark. I feel like we've lost you for a while there, but I know you're still there. I can feel your energy. So I'm curious, like, what kind of adaptations or accommodations have been helpful for you?
Thank you,
in
Mary.
spaces that you navigate?
I've just been enjoying the dialogue. I truly have.
Yeah.
You know, we live in a marvelous age. There's so many adaptations that are out there. You know, we're even getting into artificial intelligence, which will take it further.
Yeah.
In some ways positive ways, in some ways negative. We shall see. But some adaptations that I've used over the course of my last degree, of course, something termed as JAWS, job accommodation with speech, which gives me the audio input and output from my computer rather than the visual. When I started my PhD, I could see partially, and there was another program called Zoom Text, which would enlarge the print and play with the contrast. Now, with my loss of vision, I strictly have to rely upon audio. Now, if I was completing my degree back in the 1960s, I'd be relying upon volunteer readers to read it to me. I mean, human readers. The technologies have just marvelously advanced over the years. I use my iPhone extensively now in terms of the number of apps that are provided for people who are visually impaired or who are blind. The one program called Be My Eyes that will read any text to me, even script, you know, even written materials for me now. And it will interpret photographs for me. In fact, it's better to interpret
cool.
photographs than a human individual alongside me. It's so detailed in terms of interpreting photographs. The cutting edge technology now is that very soon, Be My Eyes and another program called Seeing AI, they will soon be interpreting videos, real-time interpretation of videos that are out there. So another device that I use extensively because it has tactile, as you can appreciate, the iPhone is not tactile. You use finger gestures, etc., and voice commands. We use something termed as voiceover on the iPhone. I like tactile, so this is called a Victor Trek, and it serves as a GPS system for me. So when I'm out on my walks, and I do walk extensively in the summer, I try to put in 11 kilometers a day, just walking standard blocks within my neighborhood so that I am safe, so that I know exactly where I'm at. But Victor Trek tells me exactly what streets I'm crossing. I can situate myself in terms of the direction I'm going, the length I'm traveling. I can even program in routes, etc., for myself if I'm using the route extensively again. So that helps with my mobility.
Yeah.
But one of the simplest technologies that I've used, particularly over the last dozen years or 15 years, and of course my mother used, is the simple white cane. The white cane will do so much for a person. And there is a discipline that not a lot of people know about. It's termed as orientation and mobility, used to be termed as parapedology, where there is a science to actually using the white cane properly, and indeed sighted guides. Just as an example, today I tagged on Erin's arm, and she was a perfect sighted guide, just keeping half a step ahead of me. Simple ways, but I find the white cane not only is advantageous for me, but it delivers a message to people that are out there. 99% of our population know exactly what a white cane means. Right. On rare occasion, some people get confused and think it's a big crochet hook, but it's not the case. Believe it or not. However, I think, though, we have to underline that technologies are not panaceas. They don't provide everything for us. And as I alluded to, I think there are three aspects of being involved, feeling that we're belonging, and that is the physical belonging, the social involving or social feeling that we are belonging, and lastly, spiritual, that I might get into in our last question.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Mark, for sharing all of this like super valuable information, really. And I do find it kind of fascinating, again, how innovative things are becoming, how innovative programming is becoming, but then just tech alone, and just the idea too around having AI interpret photographs in such a profound and detailed way, and how amazing that is, you know what I mean? And then as AI develops and gets a bit more, I guess, progressive and intuitive, it kind of is like, who knows what's next, you know what I mean? And so I think it's pretty fascinating stuff. And
well, not to interrupt, but
no,
I'm waiting
do.
for the potential of an Android wife, but we'll see how soon that comes along.
Please keep us posted about this. Like, I would love to maybe do a documentary if that's the case. Thanks, Mark. And so I oops, almost lost. Okay, I'm back. Whoa. I wanted to actually ask Leslie here again, just about kind of a different kind of question. So maybe speaking to the intersectionality between disability and age. So looking at those two things, and what you understand to be true about folks that you work alongside and support, around what does that sense of belonging, how does that change as folks age and folks with a disability as they age? Sorry if that sounded very convoluted. So hopefully that landed okay. It's a bit of a complex question.
Intersectionality, the new word that we hear quite a bit.
Yes.
So I'm lucky in the fact that I have actually worked with both age groups. So I started out, one of my few careers that I've had, working with children in the school. And now I work with seniors. And working with children in the school, it's amazing how they don't even know it, but they're already being inclusive. They're already accommodating because they have their little friend groups and there's no one that's left alone. And the education system is pretty good at making sure that there isn't anyone left alone. And, children will, when I was in the school, they took, let's learn some sign language so we can communicate with them. And do I need to talk louder? They were already trying to process and go through things that they could do to make sure that their classmates were included in their friend group and felt that sense of belonging and part of the school and part of those friendships. As an adult, it changes quite a bit differently. Now, of course, everybody's experiences will be different. And a lot of these experiences, depending on when they've had their hearing loss, is it happening as they age? Were they born with a particular type of hearing loss or culturally deaf using sign language? As adults age, it's different. There's lots of ways that they are treated not as well as, let's say, they would have been when they were younger. Being that invisible disability, it's often misunderstood. Accommodations that businesses provide are not always there. They're often overlooked or just felt like it was, unnecessary, or I don't have time for it. I've heard that quite a bit with people. The stigma is terrible. We can put on a pair of glasses and everything is fine. We put on a pair of hearing aids and suddenly we are no longer an intelligent person. Stigma, people relate hearing aids to intelligence and abilities as well.
Right.
And it's very hard for those who are hard of hearing to join in groups. So there's they withdraw from things. Large groups are noisy. Human beings like to talk over each other. We get so excited, so we interrupt. And, a hard of hearing person is still trying to hear and process the sentence before, and someone is already on the next sentence. I've had individuals say that they're very embarrassed because somebody told a joke, and 2 sentences later, they're on a different topic and the individual is laughing at the joke because they just heard it. Their brain just processed what they heard. So there's lots of withdrawal from people. It's just social situations are quite embarrassing. Saying, pardon me, a few times, and people will dismiss them. Or I've even had someone look at another individual and say, well, what don't you get? What's wrong with you that you don't get what I just said? But it's they can't hear. They understand perfectly. People are intelligent. People are brilliant. It's just that they can't hear. They can do everything the rest of us can do. They just can't hear. So it's that understanding and patience and acceptance from people that will give someone who's hard of hearing and culturally deaf that sense of belonging and being part of the community and being part of those friendships, those groups, that belonging. So it's it's just that acceptance and patience, I think, is so important for people to remember. And of course, terminology doesn't help. There's some archaic terms. I don't think the terms deaf and dumb helped, and that's an archaic term that's not used anymore. The word impaired is used by many. People are trying to change that to hard of hearing or deaf. So I think that terminology also had an impact on how people are treated within the communities as well.
And okay, am I interrupting you?
No,
First of all?
no.
Okay. With that in mind, like, I think as we know, like, language changes, right? And you know, we're learning as we're all going. And I think that actually, with that in mind, I think I heard you say culturally deaf. Would you mind, like, and I don't mean to come across as ignorant, but I've never heard it before, and I'm sure other folks would love to hear more about what that means.
Yes, absolutely. And I should have probably prefaced.
No, that's okay. That's okay. That's what I'm here for.
I'm in the business, so I hear it and I use this terminology all the time. So a lot of people will use hard of hearing, and a lot of people will say, well, my grandmother is deaf. So someone who has lost their hearing, profound hearing loss, significant amount of hearing loss, people will say that they're deaf, and that is perfectly acceptable. But they are not an ASL signing deaf person. They are someone who maybe has hearing aids, profoundly deaf, but they're oral, they speak. So someone who is culturally deaf, most people who we would indicate as culturally deaf would be born deaf and use sign language as their main form of communication. And deaf people have a culture. So that's kind of where that terminology comes from, is the deaf culture and someone who uses sign language as their form of communication.
Ah, well, thank you. I just feel like I'm learning so much, and this isn't even about me. It's well, I guess in a sense it is. I'm learning as along with everyone else who signed up here today. So thank you so much, Leslie. I just appreciate the knowledge you have, and of course, you come with many years there, and we can all learn a lot from you. So thank you so much. And this is something I kind of threw at Lorraine earlier without prepping her, but I wanted to maybe ask Mark, what is helpful to you to facilitate a sense of belonging? And that sounds so like clinical. So like, what in your world has allowed you to feel like you belong, like you're a part of the community like anyone else, you know?
Yes, no, I appreciate the question. It's an excellent question, which I could probably spend a week on. But
yeah, I bet.
Just a short addendum to the last speaker in the last conversation. Toward the end of her life, my mother ended up being deaf-blind, and as you can appreciate, that's not like adding deafness to blindness. Deaf blindness is a separate culture unto itself as well. As you can appreciate, there are different ways of communicating with a deaf-blind person. One way is termed as the two-hand manual, where you touch the person's hand and either spell letters out or use symbols, etc. So, and indeed, for the final approximate 10 months of her life, Mom ended up in a long-term care facility, and I was quite devastated because long-term care is simply not prepared to even know how to communicate or how to effectively work with a deaf-blind individual. I just wanted to add that. In terms of the sense of belonging, going back to what a sense of belonging means to me, I'm going to use a couple of anecdotes. Quite often, and by the way, I identify with what Lorraine is saying in terms of being in a crowd and not being able to communicate effectively because of the hearing. Mine, of course, is not being able to communicate visually. So I have been in situations where I go out to a social environment, sometimes on my own, or perhaps my partner has left for whatever the reason may be. And I'm in a crowded room, sitting in a corner, and nobody thinks of coming over to even address me, even though I might have a white cane up. And I'm not much of an extrovert, so I'm not comfortable in sitting in the middle of the room, waving my hand and saying, "Hey, I'm here, I'm here."
Yes.
So, and of course, I can't make eye contact from across the room. I don't know when somebody is trying to wave to me. And it's amazing how people, even with a white cane, think that you can, see their gestures or sense their gestures. Maybe I could if they're close enough. I don't know. But so that's what I meant by the physical sense of belonging. People have to reach out toward a person with any kind of sensory disability, and I hopefully feel comfortable in doing that, because we won't be able to reach out to them, at least directly.
Yeah.
Now, social belonging, a wonderful anecdote, and this happened to me about 5 years ago. And again, I'm a bit of a loner, a bit of an introvert. I don't mind sitting by myself having a coffee over at the local coffee emporium in our local mall. I'm often over there on my own. So about 5 years ago, a grandmother and her grandson were sitting. I could hear them off on the distance table. And the grandmother came up and introduced herself. And she said to me, and I was so impressed with this. She said to me, "My grandson saw you sitting on your own. And he said to me, he said, he's the only man sitting here alone. Why don't we give him some company? I bet he would like some company. And I'd like to get to know him. He has a white cane. What does that mean, Grandma?" So I was really touched by that. So we spent some time talking about the white cane, and giving him a bit of a demonstration, and talking about my blindness. And so that underlines being socially involved, relating to people. And bless that little tyke, would be about 11 years old now. I hope he's carrying that social empathy, if you like, with him, and I hope he will into adulthood. That gives me great hope for our future, if most of our children are like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too.
Lastly, if I can touch very briefly on what I consider to be spiritual
Yes.
belonging, or belongingness, I suppose. Have any of our group here today, have any of you experienced where, you get a phone call from a longtime friend, and you pick up the phone and you say, and this happens to me several times, you say, "I was just thinking of you. How did you know? How did you know?" Or sometimes, you'll see somebody on the street, and I was just going to call you next week. You've ended up right here. What synchronicity? Well, I'm convinced it's more than synchronicity. I believe there is a true collective unconsciousness out there. And Carl Jung wrote about that many years ago. I think he called it synchronicity, an acausal connecting principle. And that's not coincidence. I'm convinced that we are all connected. Our humanity is connected in very unconscious ways. Above and beyond that, another writer back in the middle of the 20th century by the name of Père Teilhard de Chardin wrote about a global consciousness. So he wasn't stressing an unconsciousness. He was contending that we actually connect on a conscious level, and we are more and more. And I'm convinced, despite our demagogue leaders that are out there these days, that we are connecting more and more, sometimes through social media. Mind you, social media has its negative aspects as well.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that we are connecting more and more on a conscious level. And despite the demagogues that are out there that are trying to divide us, we will come together as a humanity. And that's where I believe there is a true sense of belonging worldwide. Teilhard de Chardin labeled it as a noosphere. Noos, ancient Greek meaning to know. And I believe that noosphere exists and will develop as time goes by. Thanks for hearing my little lecture there. I'll get off my soapbox.
Oh, no, that is so, I guess we could just wrap it up here. No, I'm just kidding, Mark and everyone. No, nobody sign off. Nobody sign off. No, that is beautiful. And I just, I think all of us can connect with that, that piece of where we've been thinking of somebody, a family member, a friend, and somehow we universe a phone call, right? That's how I always call it universing. And, and it's just, it is, I think that is the another layer to experiencing a sense of belonging and feeling it and believing that it's happening is the spiritual, like contextualizing it in a spiritual sense, right? And so I do like so much appreciate that you're bringing that piece in as well. And so thank you so much, Mark. And I wanted to actually kind of put it out to Devi as well, or Carmela, and see what is helpful for Devi to experience a sense of belonging and what things have happened for that to be possible.
Yeah, well, like, I don't know who said this before. You could share about this topic for a week. I could share about it forever.
I know.
There's so much. So I'll just pick and choose a few things. But yeah, there's so many important factors when creating a sense of belonging and inclusion. And I'll kind of speak on Debbie's behalf a little bit, but you can jump in if you want to say anything, Debbie. And so I'm speaking from the perspective of kind of like an organization that supports people with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities. So most of the people we support were born with the disabilities that they have. So people with Down syndrome, autism, FASD, different things like that. So, so yeah, there's a lot of different organizations in Calgary and around the world, I think, that support people with disabilities. But I just wanted to share a little bit about L'Arche and our like model of care and how we support people and how it might be different. So first of all, we don't use certain words. We use the word core member. So W is a core member, not a client or a patient. We use this language because we value people and we see their dignity. And like you said before, it's person-centered.
Yes.
These people are at the core of everything we do. We're not here to serve them. We're here to do things with them. And so then on the other side, we have assistants, which is like me and people in our homes that are supporting people with disabilities. So we call ourselves assistants because we don't look at ourselves like, what's another word, like support workers or like nurses or something, we're not just providing a service. We really like have a fuller, more holistic view of life together. So the model of care that we have is people living together. So like I said before, we have 5 group homes. I think most of the time there's a stigma around group homes. When you hear the word group home, you think of like people who are violent and segregation and I don't know, it's stigmatized. But I really think that like if any of you were to come and walk into one of our homes, you would get a really different feel. Like here you can see our Christmas trees here. We really try to create this family kind of living together. And when you have that, you can create a place where someone belongs and where they feel like they are wanted. And yeah, so that's kind of our model of care. And then the other thing that I just wanted to say was when we truly know people, like the people in Debbie's life know her, then a sense of belonging flourishes from there. So if I didn't know anything about Debbie or who she is at the center of her life, what her history is, then I couldn't support her well. I couldn't be her friend. I couldn't make her feel like she's loved and belongs here. And it's sad, but that's often the case for people with intellectual disabilities because sometimes they can't advocate for themselves. Sometimes they don't speak. Sometimes they can't hear. Sometimes there's the like intersectionality between a whole bunch of different
Oh,
disabilities.
yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's our job to advocate for them, to be there for them, to be their friend, to be the family that they maybe never had.
Mhm.
Yeah, so because we know Debbie, we know her likes and her interests, we can support her better. By looking at Debbie, you probably wouldn't know, but she loves scary movies.
Yes, I do.
She loves them. She's such a sweet person.
Phew.
It's one of her biggest things she likes. If you didn't know her, you wouldn't know that.
Sometimes it's fun to be scared. I totally. And my partner sometimes is like, "Isn't life scary enough, Mary? Do you really need to be watching this?" I'm like, "Not enough, apparently." And but you know, I just wanted to say, like, what a beautiful model of care. It's about the relationship, right? It's not an us and them thing. It's about, like you said, people living together. So that includes folks who are like living there, and also folks who are also there to build other relationships and provide like additional assistance, right? And I just think it's just such a beautiful place to come from, because you wouldn't be able, I think, to create that unique, special environment for folks who are clearly staying and living at large areas for long periods of time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a beautiful thing, and I thank you so much for sharing that and for continuing to practice that. It's so beautiful. And I'm realizing it's 2 minutes to
Okay.
things wrapping up.
Like I
And
said, I could talk about it forever.
I
but-
know I had to cut myself off. And but I just also, I know we only have 2 minutes left, but because I have no access to Zoom and it's somehow magically still coming through on my earbuds, thank goodness, I have no idea if there's questions in the chat. So I'm curious if there is, and if so, if maybe Carol or Stephanie would want to read them, or
Just want to
We
say,
do-
Mary, you're doing an amazing job just going
Thank
over the hurdle of the tech issue. And so, yeah, if people want to hang on for just a couple more minutes, we do have one question in the chat, and just wanted to know, can any of the panelists comment on the challenges for people with disabilities accessing medical services?
Okay, since I go with people with disabilities to doctor's appointments, I think the doctors actually, okay, I will get closer. I'm afraid the doctors, the professionals, medical professionals often get very little training about disabilities. So often when we go and see the doctor, they don't know even how to relate to the person. They often asking questions to me rather than asking Davi. So, you know, simple question like, do you have a sore throat? They will ask me, can you tell me if she has a sore throat? So that's the challenge. Of course,
Right.
sometimes we also I guess the trouble is that sometimes certain symptom could be either part of disability or could be part of the sickness.
Right.
Especially when it comes to mental health. It's really difficult to know if a person cannot answer the question because they have disability or because they are sick, you know, having depression or some other mental health issues. So definitely there is need for training for the doctors, nurses, medical staff in this area. You know, nursing homes are not prepared to handle people with disabilities.
Yes, which is frightening.
So that's a quick answer.
Yeah.
And definitely accommodations as far as speaker systems. Calling out patients' names doesn't always work because those who are hard of hearing aren't going to hear those.
Right.
Microphone systems, loop systems, anything like that that can provide those with hearing aids that accessibility. Providing sign language interpreters. People will want to bring in somebody's daughter, and well, you know, mom might not want daughter to know all these medical conditions that they're going to talk about, so daughter as an interpreter is not acceptable. Need to actually have a professional interpreter. So we struggle a lot with that. I could go for an hour with that, but I won't.
Could I just add, Mary, that
Yeah.
the medical clinics themselves are not always that accessible. You know, I've known a lot of people utilizing wheelchairs that, you know, can't get up onto the examination table, for example, or even circulation space in some of the you know, the cubicle areas for your medical checkups. So we have to overcome that. There should be a standard for any medical clinic to be fully accessible.
Yeah. And you're right. It really does come down to setting that standard, and like let's go to a place where we build it out from that space, right? So then naturally, if we look at those who are maybe most vulnerable and who are managing maybe various disabilities, like building it from that space outward will encompass everyone. You know what I mean? Like that inclusive design piece that I'm sure you're very familiar with, right? But
Well,
yeah,
universal design, exactly. Universal
yes,
design, inclusive design. Indeed.
yeah.
So I think I'm going to have to leave very shortly here.
Yeah, probably a few folks do at this point, and I kind of lost track of time here. And so I do want to mention to everyone, well, of course, all the panelists, thank you so much for being here. This was a lovely session and really wonderful to moderate, even though I don't know what happened to Zoom and I just can hear you. Well, that's perfect. And I just, again, want to mention that this is the 5th and final session of the series, and I would encourage you all to visit corealberta.ca to view any recordings of the past sessions, and a link to the survey, the session survey, will be put out in the chat. So please take a couple of minutes to provide us with some feedback, because it'll help us in developing sessions in the future. We also have contact information for the panelists that were here today. And there is a slide, I don't know if it's up. However, if you want to get more information, just reach out to us and we can provide that for you. And I just really want to wish you all a wonderful day and a beautiful, peaceful transition into the weekend. And take care, everyone.